Spider-Man 2, the game that everybody says is not only the best Spider-Man game, but one of the best movie tie-in games of all time. That's not really saying much. And here I am about to give you a whole lot of disappointment. I don't think this is the best Spider-Man game. In fact, I don't think it's better than the first movie game. And before you kill me, let me explain. I think you'll at least understand where I'm coming from by the end of this review. But in the meantime, let's look at what this game did better than the first one. Number 1, the combat. You can sprint towards an enemy and uppercut them into the air and continue your combo up there. You can get more moves and skills by buying them in the upgrade store. I'll get to that later. You're able to dodge with the B button, though you do need to get the timing right when using it, otherwise you're going to get your ass kicked. The blue bar up there is your spider reflex bar. It turns everything around you into slow motion and can help with dodging attacks. Yeah, the combat has definitely improved since last time. You don't have to worry about running out of webbing, and the fact that you're able to dodge incoming attacks whilst maintaining the flow of combat is just great. Plus, this became the inspiration for the combat system in the Batman Arkham games. I mean, the combat in those games is obviously more polished, but it's still cool to go back to where it originally began. Number 2, the open world. So last time you couldn't land on the ground without dying and your webs would just stick to the clouds. Now you can go onto the ground as much as you want and explore a good chunk of New York. You can only swing when there's buildings close by, and you're definitely going to remember that, because if you're really high up in the air and there's nothing to swing off of, you're going to die. I love that. Any Spider-Man game that has fall damage is an instant plus for me. It makes swinging feel more real and even intense, especially during the chasing missions. Crimes pop up a lot. To activate one, you've got to talk to a civilian with a question mark on their head. Then they'll somehow know of a crime that's going on like a mile away. Well, now we know that Spider-Man isn't the only one with superpowers in New York. Number 3, the chapter progression. There are 15 chapters and each one has a set of objectives that you have to complete, like earning 3,000 hero points and buying a certain upgrade at the upgrade store. There'll always be an objective that's related to the story, with the exception of the first 2 chapters, which are just the tutorials. Though the first couple of chapters do go by pretty quickly, and even after that when they start getting longer, the game is still really short, clocking in at around 6 hours at most. Come to think of it, this and Ultimate Spider-Man are considered to be top tier Spider-Man games, and yet they're some of the shortest ones. The difference is that I prefer Ultimate to this. You'll see why next time. Number 4, Bruce Campbell. As great as he was in the first movie game, he was only an optional tutorial that you could just skip. Here, however, the tutorial spans over the first 2 chapters, as I mentioned a minute ago. Normally I wouldn't like this because of it being a forced tutorial, but the game anticipated this and got Bruce back.
Okay, so the next thing I want you to do is jump off the building. I mean it, just jump. Hey, I wouldn't tell you to do something dangerous and life-threatening, would I? Come on.
After the tutorials are done, you can still listen to Bruce by going to these question marks that are scattered throughout the city. It'll give you some tips on stuff you can do and some hero points for good measure. Now onto the stuff that's not so good. Number 1, the other half of the open world. Some of the crimes that you have to stop can get very repetitive. There's the infamous balloon missions where you have to rescue balloons for children and you can't yank the balloon to you because the webbing will instantly pop it. And if you manage to get the balloon, the kid doesn't even say thank you. You do realise Spider-Man just saved your balloon, right? Jeez. There's the pizza missions where you have to deliver pizzas on time without damaging them. I did the first one and forgot about the rest of them shortly after that. Best part about them is the music. If you lost any health during a story objective, you won't get any back after you've beaten it. Instead, you have to either stop a crime and hope you don't die, or go to the store and buy more health. That's just not right at all. Number 2, the voice acting. Okay, honestly, the voice acting is very up and down here. Alfred Molina does a decent job. Not on the same level as Willem Dafoe, but he does it well enough. Tobey Maguire is just as bored as last time, so nothing new to add there, and Kirsten Dunst is just not very good at all. Harry Osborn is still played by Spectacular Spider-Man and is only in like 5 cutscenes, and Bruce Campbell is easily the best voice actor in these movie games. The NPCs are just laughable, and you know what? Here's a compilation of some of the voice acting in this game.
Give it to me straight. Do I look fat in these tights?
Don't let them get the case.
Oh no. Mary Jane's play. If I hurry, I can still make it in time.
I don't have time to bother with you. You interfere with me at that old woman's peril. No!
Spidey, that man got hurt. Can you get him to the hospital?
Oh, the pain. Make it stop. Oh.
You okay?
Yeah. Great timing. What are you doing here?
You know me, always hanging around.
I'm getting married. I don't know if you heard.
Oh, really? What's he like?
He's... there. He loves me. And he's there.
I see.
Number 3. The graphics. Is it just me, or have the graphics and character models downgraded since last time? Take Spider-Man's model for example. You can see that it's more pixelated and detailed, with the webbing on the suit looking like it's smushed all over the place. And there's a lot of pop-ups when swinging through the city. It's safe to say that the developers were more focused on the swinging and free roam than the graphics. I honestly don't mind that they did this. It was the smart move. Number 4. The bonus content. There isn't any. No, I'm serious. No unlockable suits or characters, no option to replay the story objectives, no cheats menu, no bowling, nothing. There's just doing some races, delivering pizzas, and catching little kids' balloons. Hooray! Okay, now I'm going to talk about the story. Don't worry, I'm going to talk about the story how I did last time for the next review. I've just done it in this weird order as an experiment. Which means that this review will probably look really out of place once my other ones are out. After the tutorials are over, the story properly begins. Peter is slowly struggling to keep both his normal and superhero lives balanced throughout the game. Mostly like the movie, except Peter doesn't lose his powers here, because as interesting as it was to watch in the movie, playing as a powerless Peter Parker for a couple of hours would have been pretty boring. Instead, that part of the storyline is replaced by the Black Cat, who at first you chase a few times because Spidey thinks she was robbing some banks until he realises she's on his side. Throughout the story, the two become friends, and she basically represents Spider-Man if he left his Peter Parker side and everyone he knows and loves completely. This was easily the highlight of the story for me. They were still able to get that part of the movie and character right even without Peter losing his powers. Plus they used a character from the comics who was going to be in the movie at some point in production, which explains why she's in the game in the first place. Now that I mention that, Dr. Connors is in this game and was going to become the Lizard. He was even in one of the first trailers, but for some reason that storyline was cut completely and was used in the third movie game instead. Weird. Back to this game, there's also a storyline with the villain Mysterio, who you pretty much just humiliate the whole time. Like, he's creating all these illusions everywhere and Spidey's just giving him burns every chance he gets. It's great.
Okay, I'll bite. How did the fishbowl get stuck on your head?
Inside human, you are no match for the power of Mysterio.
Mysterio? I think I had a bowl of Mysterios for breakfast. A hidden door concealed by a bookcase? Mysterio, you brilliant fiend!
Welcome, Spider-Man. So glad you could drop in.
Hey, it's Mysterio. The cliché who walks like a man.
Silence! Prepare to meet your end in my Funhouse of Doom!
Funhouse of Doom? I thought you were an alien.
Silence! You may have foiled my plans this time, Spider-Man, but I'll be back. I promise you that!
Uh-huh. Heard it before. About 1,000,000 times.
The only other storyline to mention is the one with Doc Ock, which is here to remind you that this is still based on the movie in case anyone forgot with all of these other storylines. It's fine, you get a few extra scenes with Otto before he becomes a supervillain, so that's nice. But after his transformation you fight him at a bank and don't see him again for the next 3 to 4 chapters, and by that time it's the final chapter of the game. Yeah, you don't really see Doc Ock a lot here. In fact, I'm pretty sure Mysterio got more screen time than the main villain of the movie. That's just great. Might as well start talking about the boss battles. They're not great. First we have Rhino, who shows up out of nowhere just for a boss battle. He kinda has a reputation of simple and easy boss battles, and this is no exception. Wait for him to attack, dodge his attacks, then when he gets dizzy, punch him a couple of times, and then repeat. To be fair, this is the first boss of the game, so you shouldn't really expect too much from it. though the first boss from the first movie game was definitely more of a challenge than this. Next is the first fight with Doc Ock, who for the most part sends his henchmen out to fight you, and when he does fight, he's not really that difficult. When he's attacking, his arms will turn yellow and then red. When they turn red, you dodge and then quickly press the Y button to web up the arms. Once all of them are webbed up and stuck, just punch and kick the crap out of him for a little bit. This is definitely the easiest out of the fights with Doc Ock. Next is the first fight with the Shocker. Yep, he's back, and much easier than last time. You swing around to him, hit him a few times until he starts doing this, and then swing away as far as you can unless you want to lose a good chunk of your health. At some point he'll also send his henchmen out to distract you. They're easy to take care of though, you can ignore them and continue on with the fight. Nothing else to mention about this fight. Next is the boss battle with Mysterio. You punch him once and it's over. Yeah, Mysterio is pretty much a joke in this game, and it's a shame we couldn't get a proper fight with him, though this is still a really enjoyable moment. And hey, the Arkham series recreated this scene in the game that everyone can't decide is canon or not. Next is the second and last fight with Shocker. That's right, he has 2 boss battles in this game, but this one actually feels like more of a challenge. When he's on these energy platforms, you have to go to one of these control platforms on one side of the room, whilst Black Cat goes to the one on the opposite side. Press a button on it and the energy platforms will go down and you can go beat up Shocker. About halfway through, Black Cat will shut down the controls, but Shocker will still be a decent challenge. Definitely an improvement over the first fight. Next we have the second fight with Doc Ock, and it's the same as last time except he'll only attack with 2 of his arms instead of all of them. Though sometimes if you get hit you'll get thrown off of the train, so you'll have to swing back fast before he gets away. Okay, so it's a bit more challenging, but nothing like the next one. And now is the third and final fight with Doc Ock. Oh boy. First of all, you can't actually fight him because he has a shield around him, and the machine over there also has a shield, except sometimes it'll expand and most likely hit you if you're not paying attention. Plus it can randomly shoot bursts of lightning at you whenever it wants, so you're going to be attempting to look out for that. On top of that, you have to deactivate these shield generators to deactivate the machine and to get rid of Doc Ock's shield. And on top of that, one of them is underneath the place, and when you're down there trying to reach it, you'll be completely vulnerable to getting hit by the shield, which means you'll fall down into the river and instantly die, so you'll have to restart this part all over again. If you're like me and thought all of the other bosses were pretty easy, you most likely got confused when all of a sudden the difficulty went from easy or normal to annoyingly hard. The worst part is that the next few Spider-Man games also stuck to having a no difficulty option. I really don't like that. Like, if you're on one of the hardest parts of the game and you can't change the difficulty to give you a better chance of winning, it can feel really bad. You'll feel like it's nearly impossible to beat it. I'm not saying that I do that in any games that I play now, but at least give us the option like the first movie game did. I'm sorry, I lost track of what I was on. Oh yeah, there's still more of the final boss to talk about. After you eventually deactivate the generators, it's time to fight Doc Ock. He'll attack with all of his arms, and at points, all 4 at once. Same as before, except you might want to use some of your spider reflex throughout the fight, especially when things get a bit chaotic. Once that's over, Otto sees all of the damage that he's caused and sacrifices himself to stop the machine. Peter and Mary Jane get together, crimes are afoot, and credits. As you could tell, the bosses were, for the most part, not that much of a challenge, and the story was decent but could have been handled better. It's clear that the developers were more focused on perfecting the gameplay and open world, though some parts of it they didn't do great at all. The combat is good, the web swinging and size of the open world are both pretty impressive for a first proper jab at it. The chapter progression is a good mix of story and side quests, the soundtrack is alright but not as memorable as last time. But the repetitive crimes, the up and down voice acting, the downgraded graphics, forgot to mention the CG cutscenes just existing, and the lack of bonus content prevent this game from being better than the first movie game. Man, I've said movie game a lot in this review. Before I wrap this up, I should let you know that I was going to give the first game a rating, but I just completely forgot. So I'm going to give Spider-Man the movie game a 7.5 out of 10, and I'm going to give Spider-Man 2 the movie game a 6.5 out of 10. Now the reason I've given the first game a 7.5 despite all of the praise I gave it in my review is because there are later Spider-Man games that did surpass it, to me anyway. From this review, you're probably thinking that I really don't like this game, but no, I think this is a pretty good installment in this little gaming franchise. It's definitely a little bit overrated and probably not in my top 5 Spider-Man games, but I still think you'll have a pretty fun time playing this regardless. Thanks for watching and come back next time as I review Ultimate Spider-Man. See you guys.